warm greetings on World Teachers Day and to encourage them to continue to do the excellent work that they have been doing in educating us all. Let me also congratulate our Independence Awardees. In agriculture, we had Mr. McClevin Truss. In business, Mrs. Hyacinth Hendrickson, who does the famous hot bread and butter in Brownhill. Mr. Ulrich Panko Morton. In culture, Mr. Steve Reed, Sr. In education, Mrs. Ermelita Elliott. And Mr. Anthony Jones. In health, Nurse Lorraine Archibald. In music, Mr. Rohan Claxton. And in tourism, Miss Eldaria Jones. May I also use the opportunity to extend congratulations and happy birthday to Mr. Clarence Hendrickson, who turned 100 years old on Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. He has worked in the field of agriculture as a youth. He migrated to England in 1957, where he worked in the chemical industry and with British Rail. Upon retirement, he returned to Nevis and was an avid gardener, producing fruits and vegetables. 100 years old. I think that is something to be celebrated. Let me also celebrate with and congratulate Onaje Amory and Carlin Tuckett, who have been named in the Rising Stars Under 19 team, which was released on Monday, the 26th of September. Both cricketers would have played for the Leewards, who won the Rising Stars Under 19 championship, which was held in St. Vincent. Let me also use the opportunity to congratulate two young Nevisians who were honored at the NEVDC Annual Honors Banquet held on the 24th of September. They were Shalisa Glassford, who was also the keynote speaker, and Mr. Jelani Manners, a youngster who I think we all see is going great places. And so I would want to join in extending congratulations to all of those persons who have been rightly recognized and rewarded for their hard work. Let me now move to a quick update and report that yesterday I had the opportunity to meet with the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Terence Drew, at his office in St. Kitts, and had the opportunity to engage with him on a wide range of matters impacting the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis. I was also able at that opportunity to engage with His Excellency Michael Lin, Ambassador of the Republic of China on Taiwan, and to collect on behalf of the government and people of Nevis a check in the amount of US $1.2 million, which is part payment towards a significant project that we have developed and have asked the financing, asked the Taiwanese government to finance on our behalf. That project is the final stages of the Pinners Park project. And as we know, we would have created and developed the Malcolm Gishard Park at Pinners, which has been a hit with all and sundry. We now have another aspect of that, which will involve roadways, drainage, parking lots, bathrooms, lighting, security, and of course, enhancing the amenities around the restaurants. We will also propose to plant some foliage, more specifically some coconut palms and the like, to restore some of the original look there at Pinners. So this aspect is very involved, very detailed. It is an aspect of the project which is designed to enhance the environmentally friendly and Nevis naturally approach that we have taken on the island. I should report that this was a project that was put together with the Ministry of Tourism as the lead, but also involving our planning department, our Ministry of Works, and that this will be implemented in collaboration with the stakeholders at Pinners. This is, of course, the culmination of a long-held dream of the people of Nevis to have this facility and to build it out from the roadway, essentially, all the way to the beach. We have done and completed the park itself. We're now adding all the other amenities at the beach side. I think many of us are aware that when we go to Pinners, particularly when it rains, there's difficulty with drainage. There's some problems there, particularly the road that takes us across to the restaurants. All of that is now being fixed. And so we have contracted the same contractor who would have done the park, Guangzhou Construction, and they hope to be mobilized very soon. And I would want to publicly thank the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for once again coming forward and being prepared to fund a significant project here on the island of Nevis. I want to be clear that on this occasion, these funds were earmarked for the office of the Prime Minister, and it is Dr. Drew who would have insisted that these funds be transferred to the NIA for purposes of this project so that we could start this project as soon as possible. I believe that that is worthy of mention, and it is demonstrative of the new Prime Minister's approach to the island of Nevis, and I would also like to take this opportunity to commend him. I said to him yesterday when we met privately that thus far he has done everything that he said he would do in relation to Nevis, and thus far all the assurances that he has given me have in fact borne fruit. And so I would want to thank him publicly. I think that this is, to my mind, a new era, an era of cooperation, an era of development, and an era of partnership. And I'm very grateful to Prime Minister Drew for making this possible and for insisting, at his insistence, that these sums come to Nevis so that we could start this project. The alternative would be that we would have had to have delayed this project until next year. So I think the circumstances that we can move this project forward quickly, and I would want to thank him, thank, of course, the new government, but also thank our dear friends, Taiwan, who have demonstrated time and time and time again that they are our best friend internationally, and they continue to invest in the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, whether it's education, healthcare, security, infrastructure, and now in the context of leisure, where we will be able now to transform Pinnis Beach into the Mecca that it already has become, but to provide now the support amenities for our tourism product. And so we thank them for this very significant investment. Just for purposes of the record, members of the press, the overall project, I'm told, is $3.2 million US. And of that, as I said yesterday, we would have received 1.2 of that amount. And so we are well on the way to getting this project done, and we hope to see mobilization shortly. We recognize that there's some construction going on the beach. New restaurants are being added. There's a hub and hive of activity there, and we hope that this now will complement what is happening there to ensure that we create a beautiful destination for our people, primarily because everything this government does, we do for our people, and then, of course, for our visitors as well to enjoy. And so we look forward very much to that. And again, I can't reiterate enough how much I'm grateful to the Taiwanese and to the Office of the Prime Minister, Dr. Drew, for this very significant gesture to the people of Nevis. Let me go on, therefore, with some additional updates, and I cannot move on from this aspect without saying how absolutely proud I am of a young constituent of mine, Yakira Elliott, and another young Nevision, Lakeisha Sharma. And you may ask why, and I'll tell you why, because as youngsters they're doing something that I thought might not be possible, and that is they are part of a robotics team that the Federation is sending to Switzerland for a competition involving some 200 teams from across the world. And these two Nevision youngsters are part of that team. And I want to thank them, their parents, of course, those who have organized this team. The leader of the team, Pierce, remind me, Dr. Neil, who is the man who used to be here with us in education. He has moved over to St. Kitts. Always, you could always tell him because he always has a signature bow tie. But Dr. Neil has done a fantastic job with these youngsters, and I'm so proud to see young Yakira and Lakeisha involved in this particular venture. And so I wish them safe travels. I'm told they travel this weekend to Switzerland, and they're going to a beautiful country. I hope they have some chocolates while they're there, and they come back with the first prize. But just the fact that they're part of it, that they're going to this grand competition in Switzerland, I think speaks wonders. And so, Yakira, if you're listening, Keisha, if you're listening, congratulations to both of you, to your parents. I don't even want to mention Yakira's grandmother because she's probably going to find a way to call the press conference to give her input as well. But Rodney, if you're listening, congratulations to you as well. So we look forward certainly to good news from these youngsters coming out of Switzerland. Let me switch now to the Ministry of Health. We have some very important updates there. On Wednesday, the 14th of September, we saw the official handing over and commissioning of several pieces of new equipment to the Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority. These included an HE 210 excavator, 2 garbage trucks, brand new, and 1 HD 22R bulldozer, an SBC mulcher, 60 360-liter dustbins, and several spare parts, all with a combined value of $969,745.80. Those were funds provided by the Nevis Island Administration to invest in solid waste. And so, essentially, solid waste received 2 new garbage trucks, a new excavator, a new bulldozer, a new mulcher, and some 360-liter dustbins, several spare parts. We are very, very proud that we have been able to achieve this, because we think that what solid waste does, they're absolutely on the front line of healthcare and keeping us healthy on this island. A clean, healthy island is important for us. And as I say, what we do, I do, this government does for us. Visitors who come and enjoy it as well, that's the bonus. So I am very proud that we were able to invest nearly $1 million in this equipment, which will ensure the viability and ease the work of the professionals at Solid Waste for the next foreseeable future. I want to thank the board. I also want to thank, of course, the manager there. Everybody knows the man they call Murray, Andrew Hendrickson, and he has done a wonderful job leading that team, full of energy, and I welcome certainly this initiative and thank them and the partnership that the government has with solid waste that we have been able to deliver this at this time. As part of the waste recycling program, which is well underway as well, a very, very big and important initiative for the island of Nevis, Solid Waste is also in possession of a plastic bottle baling machine, which is currently installed at the landfill. Training in the operation of the machine was done by a representative of the Taiwanese ICDF from June to September 9th. This is important. 3,559.25 pounds of plastic, 106.3 tin cans, and 47.88 pounds of aluminum cans were collected and processed. We take this opportunity to encourage the general public to separate these recyclables from the irregular garbage, and they can be dropped off at the landfill for processing. So put differently, we are trying to live up to our tagline of Nevis Naturally. And while we have the ultimate goal of banning plastics on the island, in the meantime, we are and have put something in place with the assistance of our dear friends from Taiwan, where we are now seeking to recycle. And so we have the plastic baling machine, and we have already, as you've heard, done over 3,500 pounds of plastic. And so we are asking the public now to join us in that effort, plastics, tin cans, aluminum cans, as the case may be, so that we can process those, keep them out of the landfill, keep them out of the guts and the streams, and ensure that we have a cleaner and healthier Nevis. We also want to acknowledge the in-country visit of PAHO consultant Dr. Jessica Prince, who facilitated the Perinatal Information System web-based version SIP Plus training for doctors and nurses at the community health centers and at the hospital maternity ward. The SIP program is an integral part of sustaining the elimination of mother-to-child transmission of HIV and syphilis in St. Kitts and Nevis. As you know, St. Kitts and Nevis a few years ago had the proud moment of finally being able to say that it had entirely eliminated mother-to-child transmission of HIV and syphilis. And so this is designed to continue to monitor and enhance our abilities here. We engaged in some training, and that took place from September 5th to September 9th, 2022. We would like to thank PAHO for its continued participation with us and cooperation with us. On Thursday, the 29th of September, ICDF Program Manager, Mr. William Chen, donated an in-body portable device to the Ministry of Health and Gender Affairs. The portable and precise in-body composition analyzer provides accurate analysis for professionals on the go. The device delivers standard measurements like percent body fat, skeletal muscle mass, BMR, and more. The test includes a full-page result sheet printout, or by scanning your QR code to get details on your muscle, fat, and water measurements, and it highlights specific areas for you to focus on. The device is stationed at the Health Promotion Unit and will be used as part of our screening programs by the Ministry of Health. In recognition of World Mental Health Day and Mental Health Week, the Community Mental Health Unit will be having a week of activities starting on October 9th. Mental health, as you know, is very important, and this government is committed to doing all it can in relation to mental health and treating those who suffer from mental health issues. We have recently commissioned a mental health facility at Prospect. I'm very proud of that we have now a purpose-built facility for that reason, where we have used the building there and reconfigured it for that purpose. And so we look forward very much to being able to treat and to deal with our mental health patients in a much better and more conducive atmosphere than we've hitherto had. The number of activities include a church service on Sunday 9th October, World Mental Health Day is celebrated on Monday 10th, and we encourage persons to wear green in support of those affected by mental health. We will have a facility walkthrough on Client Social and Recreation Day at Grove Park starting from 12 p.m. We also have things like depression and anxiety screening, unit grounds and Prospect, and On the Mark show on Vaughan Radio. There will be a discussion. On Thursday the 13th, Stigma and Discrimination Workshop, and on Saturday 15th, there's a health walk. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that we all owe our fellow men and women and each other and our community a renewed emphasis on mental health. We have seen growing numbers of persons having mental health issues, particularly during and after COVID. Of course, we knew the trauma of COVID, where people were locked down and behaviors had to be altered radically. And so that has led to some difficulties for many. I believe that many people suffer from some aspects of mental health. It could be depression, it could be any aspect. Sometimes we used to say when we were young, somebody wake up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. Sometimes it's not just that, but people have pressures, and pressures lead to difficulties in terms of their capacity to cope. And so all of us, I think, have a duty to be sensitive to those suffering from mental health, knowing that each of us is susceptible, and mental health is a critical part of our overall physical well-being. A quick update on our CT scan. We had some delays in delivery due to shipping. I'm told that the CT scan was sitting on a ship in a container in Kingston Harbor for well over 2 weeks. We just are having the supply chain issues and shipping issues. But the update now is that the CT scan will arrive Nevis on October 20th. So it is almost a month late. But October 20th it should arrive, and the installation will take 2 to 3 weeks. The specialist will be here from Philips to do the installation. So we apologize for that, but it was certainly outside our control. I also wanted to take the opportunity, members of the press, and those members of the public who are listening, to advise that, unfortunately, we have detected some cases of hand, foot, and mouth disease on the island of Nevis. I'm told that we have had 30 reported cases in the past few days. We have had 3 daycare centers, 2 preschools, and 4 primary schools affected by this hand, foot, and mouth disease. Now, the good news is apparently it is not uncommon for children to develop this particular disease. It is also said by the necessary experts that it is usually quite minor. It might involve a fever, it might involve a rash, and it might involve some mouth sores. It is spread by contact from one child to the next, and so they say it is particularly prevalent in schools, nurseries and the like, where children come into close contact with each other and putting their hands in their mouths. The Ministry of Health is aware of the situation. They have sent out the necessary information, and we will continue to engage to ensure that we do the very best to contain this outbreak. Good news, as I said, it is not considered a serious disease. It is deemed to be minor in terms of the impact, but of course, we will have to be vigilant. I checked on treatment. I was told there's no specific treatment, but that it tends to go away within 7 days or thereabouts. So let us hope that we can control and that there will be no further difficulty. But I thought it important to alert the press and the public that we have had those cases detected on the island of Nevis. Let me move quickly to the Department of Youth. They hosted their annual Youth Impact 12 Awards ceremony on Thursday, September 29th at NEPAC under the theme Embrace Your Royalty. This year, the 8 awardees were Kalia Clark for Education and Lifelong Learning, Noel Alexander for Volunteerism, Keanu Fraser, Youth in Technology, Alexandra Richards, Sports Excellence, Al J. Newton for Youth Development, Javian Barrett, Youth in the Arts, Akela Bendito, Youth in Cultural and Historical Preservation, and Evelyn Nisbet, Youth in Agriculture. We would like to congratulate all of these inspiring young people and commend the director and staff of the Department of Youth for always doing such an excellent job. Let me also congratulate the Bath United football team. They traveled to Antigua on the weekend of September 24th and 25th to participate in the inaugural Antigua Nevis Cup. Bath United and 3 other teams from Antigua took part in the competition, which Bath United won convincingly. They won all of their preliminary matches and won the finals by a goal tally of 5-0. Captain Omarion Bartlett was named Player of the Series. And so I congratulate Omarion and the entire team and the entire Bath community. October is being celebrated as Seniors Month, and the Seniors Division of the Social Service Department has planned a number of activities to celebrate and honor our seniors. The public is being invited to support these events as we continue to show love and respect to our seniors. One of the events that popped out at me was the fact that the seniors will be having what they call a talent explosion at NEPAC on Thursday the 20th. And so we're inviting one and all to come out, show our seniors some love as we continue to celebrate with them. A brief note on tourism. I have received some statistics on the proposed cruise season. It appears to be on par with what we would have seen in previous years, and we are anticipating some 47 calls, and those 47 calls we're anticipating will bring just 18,119 passengers to our shores. The calls start on the 27th of November, and they end on the 17th of April, 2023. And so we look forward, and I'm sure this is good news for our taxi operators, our vendors, who look forward to the small cruise industry that we have here for some sustenance. And so we look forward to welcoming these ships and to continue our excellent record of engaging with our tourism partners. Turning quickly to the Ministry of Works and Labor. We have been advised that a number of past employees from Nevis who were displaced from their jobs due to non-compliance to their employers requiring a COVID-19 vaccine policy, that they have now benefited from a gratuitous payment approved by the federal cabinet. Checks were sent over to the Nevis Labor Department for those employees and have been dealt with. We have done the distribution. And so we say thank you again to the federal government and for those people who would have benefited from this change in policy and were compensated because they would have lost their jobs as a result of refusal to take the vaccine. I have spoken about the Pinnes Beach development earlier, the traffic and flooding issues that we encounter there, that is being resolved, and this new project that is about to start and for which we would have collected the down payment, if you will, on the project yesterday. Water Department has a new manager, as many of you would have heard. It is Miss Santania Mills. She comes from Gingerland, Simmons Estate. She is a graduate teacher, but also has a degree from Midwestern State University in business administration with a double major in accounting and economics. We want to congratulate her and wish her well in her new role. She would have taken over from Ms. Tonya Bartlett, who resigned earlier this year. And so we would also want to thank Ms. Tonya Bartlett for her service. The Bath Village Road project is ongoing, and I took the opportunity 2 days ago to go to see for myself what's happening there. I believe that the project is moving at a good pace. The residents there appear quite happy with what they're seeing. And as usual, we're trying to incorporate as many villagers as possible in the construction process of the walls and drains and the like. That is the policy of this government, that wherever we go to do infrastructural work, we try to involve the artisans and the workers from that village or that area. And so I am very pleased with what I'm seeing there. I would ask Public Works to press on in the hope that we will have a brand new carriageway in Bath by Christmas. That is my ambition. I have saying that without discussing it with Public Works. So I'm saying, as the area representative, that is what I would like to see, that we would have that completed by Christmas. Also in Butlers, that project is really going beautifully. I took the occasion again on that day to visit Butlers and was very impressed with what they've done there. That project is now nearing completion, and I'm very happy and would want to congratulate Minister Spencer Brand and his entire team for the excellent work that they have been doing. Storage tanks, as you know, we continue to invest significantly in water, our water capacity, our water storage, our water distribution system, and a new storage tank that we purchased from Aquastore in Florida. The existing tank has been dismantled, and the new tank will be 250,000 imperial gallons. That replaces the previous tank, which was 160,000 gallons, but which had become dilapidated. The construction team from Aquastore should be here shortly to install that tank, which will allow us to store more water in that area that, as we know, feeds the areas downstream from it. And so we look forward very much to that work being completed. The Methodist stone wall, I mentioned last night on the program that I was so impressed with what I am seeing happening in that area there by the Methodist church in town, come around by the Maud Cross preparatory school, and going all the way down to the Jews cemetery. I would really want to commend again Minister Spencer Brand and his team, his engineers and the team at Public Works. I believe they've done a remarkable job. I could not in my own mind anticipate that they could get that road widened and enhanced in the way that they've done. And so I would want to commend them and invite you, the members of the press, to have a walk around or drive around that area. It really has been completely revolutionized in terms of what you see there from what was there. The traffic now flows easily, and I want to thank the Methodist Church for their partnership and allowing us to knock down the old wall that was there and reconstruct a new wall. And also, of course, now the children who go to that school have proper sidewalks, and it's a far safer environment now for them and their parents, dropping them off, picking them up, as the case may be. So I'm delighted at the work that is being done there. Some of these things sometimes happen, and we don't celebrate them. We don't comment on them because people say, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. But the truth is, as I always say, if you elect a government and they're doing what they're supposed to do, that means that's a good government, because we are doing what you elected us to do. And I am impressed beyond measure with the work that the Honorable Spencer Brand and his team have been able to accomplish thus far on the island of Nevis. They're not yet done, because they tell me that they're doing a footbridge in Brickhill, and the earth and stone works at that footbridge has progressed significantly. We will now be sending out to contractors for bids on that footbridge and the retaining wall. Postal services, the Nevis Post Office will be celebrating with other postal services worldwide the 53rd year of the World Post Day, which will be observed on the 9th of October 2022 under the theme Post for Planet. As always, there will be a host of activities to which you are invited. I end by just giving a brief update that the Ministry and Department of Agriculture and Marine Resources will be observing World Food Day with a week of activities from 10th to the 16th of October. The theme for this year is Leave No One Behind. Highlights of the week will include a school garden competition among the primary schools. They will have product promotion day with items from the abattoir and agro-processors. They will visit and help selected farmers and fishers with some of their projects. There will be a market night in Charlestown from 4 to 10 p.m. on Friday, 14th October. And then on 15th October, an event that I'm personally looking forward to, they're inviting everyone to the Indian Castle Fruit Orchard for a family fun day. And we're very proud as a government of that Indian Castle facility and what has been done there. Kudos to Minister Alexis Jeffers and his entire team, and to the man on the ground there, Banky, Ronald King, who really has transformed an area into an oasis. You have to see it to believe it. And I encourage you to go and look at it to see all that we have done there to transform that area, and the food that is now being produced there and the fruits that are being produced there are very significant. And so we invite you to go out and be a part of all of these activities that we are doing here on the island of Nevis. I shall leave it there and invite any questions that members of the press may have for me as we continue, of course, with this press conference. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Good morning to everyone who's present here. Shamika Bajin, Vaughan Radio. I have a few questions for you this morning. I'm going to start off with what can you tell us about the airport? I think sometime back you mentioned that the NIA were in discussions about partnership to help to bring back more air traffic on the island. Can you give us an update on that? Also, has there been a drop in complaints and compliance from livestock owners since the Department of Agriculture issued the warning to them, allowing their animals to roam freely and evidently causing damage to property and road hazards? So can you give us an update on that? Can you provide an update on the geothermal project to be implemented in the coming months? And my fourth question, can you give us an update on the missing teen, Kelvin Williams? Is it now a cold case, as we are not hearing anything? The public is not hearing anything about that. I think he was last seen in April, if my memory serves me correctly. So can we get an update on that as well? And that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have asked for an update on the airport project. That project has not advanced at this point. We are still awaiting discussions with a potential partner on that development. In the meantime, however, we have initiated discussions with property owners in the vicinity of the existing airport to discuss with them the acquisition of properties that will be required for the airport, proposed airport expansion. We have also commenced the design phase of the project. As I indicated, we are using a firm called Perez Consultants, who would have done the Argyle International Airport in St. Vincent, and we have continued in that vein. This is, of course, a very elaborate, involved, and large-scale project. And so it is one that we anticipate will not really be ready to come to the public and to have the necessary consultations and discussions with the public, as we always do, until next year. And so those discussions are ongoing, and of course I will update as I have information to pass on. Complaints in terms of livestock farmers, I have not had any reports, so I can't respond as to whether or not that's the case. I can tell you that we had a very, very unfortunate situation where some roaming cattle would have attacked a student at the MUA, and that student ended up being hospitalized. And this is after months and months of warnings and discussions with the owners. And so the police were engaged, and I'm told that a few of the cattle were destroyed. And we have signaled that we are very serious about this, that we have a duty to keep everybody safe. And I go back to what I said earlier about the dogs and the community, that we have to strike a balance. We need food security, but those who are raising animals must also be responsible and not allow their animals to be roaming the roads or causing damage to other people. All of us in this room have either experienced or heard of others who have experienced accidents on the roads, cars smashed up, Jeep mashed up because of a cow or some other animal on the road. We already have enough problems with donkeys and monkeys, which are not owned by anyone. I think that we need to control those that are owned by individuals. And on that situation at MUA, there had been continuous complaints and warnings and discussions until sadly, eventually, the animals attacked a student, and that student ended up at the hospital. Thank God it wasn't worse, because it could have been much worse. And so the police had to be engaged there. And we hope that that is signal enough to our farmers that we are ready to partner, we want to partner, we want them to do well, we want them to produce food, but they have to be responsible. And that is all that we're asking for every member of our society. If you're a dog owner, be responsible. If you're a farmer, be responsible. And always consider that you're not existing on this island on your own, that other people also live here. And people don't appreciate that your animals are coming into their yard and eating down their plants. They don't appreciate that your animals are destroying their properties. They don't appreciate that your animals are creating a road hazard and risk on the roads. And in this case, this student was attacked by one of the cows and ended up in hospital. So, as I said, thank God it wasn't worse, but this was for us a breaking point, and the police had to be engaged to put down some of these animals. And so we are hopeful that that doesn't continue and that our farmers may be more responsive and more responsible.
In a case such as that, why were the cattle put down? Wasn't it supposed to be the owner of the cattle being penalized?
Well, I think if you put down the cattle, that is a huge penalty for the owner. The cattle represents value. It's property of the owner. And so what we're saying to owners, if you refuse to control your animals, if your animals are allowed by you to pose a threat to the public, then we'll have to put them down. And we don't want to do that. We do not want to do that, because we cannot on the one hand be pushing food security and incentivizing and encouraging our farmers to do more, and then on the other hand we are destroying their animals. So that is why I'm saying we need to strike that balance, and people need to be responsible. I use that word a lot in my press conferences. We need to be responsible. We need to consider that when we open our pen and we put 150 sheep and goat on the main road, coming down the road, that creates a problem. An accident can happen, people can die. And so we want you to farm, we want you to produce, but we also want you to be responsible. And as I said, the situation at MUA came after months and months of complaints and warnings that these cattle kept invading the premises. And nothing was done, and unfortunately, it came to that. And as I said, praise be to God, it wasn't worse.
So another question. So who would pay that bill?
What bill?
In terms of the medical student reaching to the hospital. I'm not sure if they were hospitalized, but who would take care of that bill?
Well, I'm not sure who took care of the bill. I mean, ordinarily, it would be the responsibility of the animal owner, but in the circumstances, I can't answer that. I don't know who took care of the bill in this situation. Update on geothermal project. I think as we all would have heard, that we had a bit of a, how should I put it, a roadblock in relation to our geothermal project. The Caribbean Development Bank had offered substantial funding, grant funding to this project, and had offered expertise to take this project to the next level. The phase that we are of this project is that all the exploratory work and all the testing has been done. We're at a stage now where we need the wells, the production wells they're called, those need to be drilled, and of course the plant needs to be built. That is where we are with this project. This project has been described in various ways, but the experts that I have spoken to say that Nevis has one of the best geothermal resources in the world. Now that sounds wonderful, but it is of no value to us unless we can realize that potential. Especially, as you know, we've had a crisis in terms of oil prices, which has had a knock-on effect in terms of the cost of electricity. People have been complaining bitterly. Incidentally, I am very grateful that some relief has come and that most people are saying that their bills now are manageable. So we are hopeful that your bill is manageable. So please pay it at NEVLEC and pay it on time so that we can keep the engines running. That's important. But It's important for us to wean ourselves off oil and fossil fuels. Just yesterday, I saw a press report that said that OPEC had agreed to cut production. And so the expectation is that oil prices are going to go back up again because they are now artificially reducing production in order, of course, to keep prices up. Oil companies are making obscene profits. And so we are caught in this vortex we have no control over. We have to produce electricity. Electricity is a critical part of our lives, and it comes at a tremendous cost. And so renewable energy, wind, solar, geothermal, etc., really do provide an alternative that we must go to. It's not a question now or even a wish list. It is something which I believe we have to move to. And since Nevis has this resource described as one of the best in the world, it really behooves us to exploit it. We have been trying. It has been exceedingly difficult on the financing side. That is where we have run into problems. Everybody comes and tells you the thing is very good. It's excellent. But on the financing side, it has always been difficult because of our small population and because of the risks on the return in terms of the investment. And so the CDB has come to our rescue. They have a plan where they use green climate funds that are available, and they are therefore saying that they can make funds available to us on what they call a contingent recovery grant. And how I'm told that works is that the funds are provided to us to do the drilling. They, of course, provide all the support, technical support. And if the drilling is successful, which the science says it will be, then that grant is converted to a very nominal interest loan. If the drilling is not successful, then the grant is simply a grant. And so what that means is that it removes the risk entirely from any developer. And that was really the sticking point with all these developers that we spoke to, raising the money up front, because it's a process that is capital intensive up front. And so the CDB has come. Now, why I say there was a roadblock is because the CDB has engaged with us all along, the NIA, on this project. But they needed a letter from the federal government in Bastia simply to say that they had no objection to this project moving forward and would stand behind the NIA in relation to this particular project. Regrettably, that letter was not forthcoming from the previous Prime Minister. This new Prime Minister, Dr. Drew, has in very short order issued the necessary letter to the CDB in Barbados. And so we're very pleased again. And this press conference will perhaps be dubbed as the Thank You, Dr. Drew press conference. But I'm grateful to him because he has sent the letter in quick order. The CDB, up to today, PS, was it today or yesterday? Yesterday, provided a comprehensive update to us in terms of where they are, because they were waiting on that. That's why I said it was a roadblock. Everything was in a holding pattern until they got from the federal government, it's fine to proceed with the NIA. And so they've done so now, and everything is full speed ahead. We are hopeful for December determination, because what they're doing the proposal to the board, which meets in December, and they're doing the selection of the driller at the same time. Normally they would be sequential, but here they're doing them in parallel to save time, since we would have wasted so much time waiting on this letter. So the letter is now gone, and I'm grateful for that, and we can now move forward as aggressively as we can with this geothermal project. So there has been some good movement, and I'm hopeful that I can come back with something substantial and tangible to report in the weeks ahead. You asked about young Kelvin Williams, and I really have no update. The police have not been able to shed any light on this. They have not come and indicated anything new in relation to this young man who has disappeared, as you say, since April, and so I can't add anything further, but that we have no further updates on that matter. Any other questions for me?
Good morning, Premier Brantley.
Good morning.
And may I take the opportunity to congratulate you on your recent receipt of a doctorate of laws, honorary doctorate of laws.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Now, first of all, you mentioned that some time ago that there was a committee that was established to look into the issues in relation to St. Kitts and Nevis, the fair share component matters. Could you just give us an update as to
Well,
where that has gone.
I didn't say it was established. I said it was being established.
Okay.
So we have nominated our members to that committee. I've written to the Prime Minister indicating who the people from Nevis would be, 3 persons. It will be led from the cabinet of the NIA by the Honorable Troy Liebert, and we have the legal advisor, Madam Helen Lewis, and Mr. Colin Dorr, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance. Those will be the troika from Nevis, and they now will join those from the Prime Minister's side in Sinkis to sit and have this discussion. So that was one of the matters that he and I discussed yesterday, and we look forward to that committee being formally constituted to engage in those discussions. So at this point, that is where we are. We have not yet started the work. We're just putting the committee together.
Okay, good. All right. Budget time is approaching for the 2023 budget. Could you simply kind of identify for us what would be the perhaps 2 or 3 priorities for Nevis that you want to focus on in that budget? Secondly, in regards to tourism, which remains a significant driver for the island, what will be your focus in tourism specifically? And are you satisfied with the current level of accommodation capacity of the island? Because you're talking about an airport expansion project, for example, and people always argue about the chicken and the egg situation, but it seems to me that both of them must go hand in hand. So what is the situation and what are the plans? And secondly, thirdly, simply comment also in relation to the roads projects that are to be completed, the main road, I think, between Cliff Dwellers area into the camps areas or somewhere around there. Just give us an update on those. Thank you.
All right. Let me start, Mr. Bard, where you ended on the main road project. I really, really had hoped that I would be making an announcement today about the start of that project. Unfortunately, we have been held up a bit because our financing, they're telling us that we will have a final position tomorrow, Friday. And so I wasn't able to get that information, a decision in time for this press conference, which had already been scheduled for today. So we are optimistic that once that financing is released, that the contractor, we have selected Surrey Paving, who did the phase from Cotton Ground to Cliff Dwellers, to now do the phase from Cliff Dwellers over to Ex-Petrol, I think, that area, just past Nisbet Plantation. And so that is our hope that we can get that done. They have indicated that they're ready to mobilize as quickly as the money can flow. And so we anticipate that we will have that within a coming week or so if we can get that decision tomorrow from our bankers. And so we expect that that is going to be done. And we hope, especially the section between Cliff Dwellers and the water taxi facility, that area would be a priority because there's some drainage issues there. But also we anticipate, based on the reports that we're getting from the tourism stakeholders, that we will have a very high occupancy for the season upcoming based on advanced bookings. So barring storms or difficulty, we're anticipating quite a robust season. And if that is the case, we know that corridor is going to have a lot of activity. So we are hopeful that we can get that done. Incidentally, while you didn't ask me this question, as I mentioned the water taxi pier, we hope that the actual construction work will commence in the coming week. We've done the demolition of the area for the reception and departure lounge, and we're hopeful that the actual construction now will commence in a week. They're telling us that the construction period should be about 14 weeks. So we're anticipating that by December, we ought to be complete. That is the hope at this stage. Tourism, number of rooms. You asked, am I satisfied with the room stock? The short answer is no. We would like to see more hotel rooms available, more villas as well available. I have had good news from the Mount Nevis Hotel, which, as you know, was shuttered during COVID, that they plan to reopen. I believe the date they gave me was the 3rd of December, that they plan to reopen that hotel. So that's good news that will put some rooms back into the pool of hotel rooms. But you use the language of chicken and egg, and it's a really difficult analysis sometimes, because when some argue we need more hotels and we need more hotel rooms, we get the response sometimes that the occupancy of the existing hotels is quite low at some points. In fact, I think Four Seasons, our flagship, was at 5% about a week ago. 5% is practically empty. It's difficult to run a plant the size of the Four Seasons with 5% occupancy. So we have this periods of plenty and periods of famine. You know, that is how our tourism works. And so I mentioned, for example, the cruise ships. They start coming in November. By April, that's it for the year. Similarly, the tourists come, the harsher the winter in America and Europe, that's when they come. Once summer, spring and summer emerges in those destinations, they stop coming. And so you constantly have this struggle. So what is the right mix and what is the right answer? That's a matter I suppose the experts will continue to debate. But it is always a challenge when you say you want more rooms, increase the room stock, but you're not seeing a corresponding increase in occupancy and occupancy levels. So do we have another 5, 6 hotels and all of them are at 10%? Or do we focus on filling the rooms that we have and ensuring that the hotels that we have are operating at 80 and 90% capacity for longer periods during the year? So that is really the debate. The airport project is a major project because one of the big complaints that we get from our hoteliers is that there's not enough airlift. Even into RLB, they complain there's not enough airlift, particularly when they have big groups. There's a huge problem in getting their people here. Nevis and St. Kitts are very expensive to get to. We can blame the airlines because I think that they do take advantage of the virtual monopoly that American Airlines, for example, has on that pathway from the United States to our country. But I think we also must be realistic that we have some of the highest taxes on tickets in the region as well. And in fact, I heard a recent speech by this chap involved with IATA. I think IATA, they deal with the tickets and all of that worldwide. And he made the point that the Caribbean as a whole, that we were becoming uncompetitive because of the high taxes. Many of us, for example, if we buy a ticket on, say, Liat, and you see the breakdown, you realize that the amount for Liat is actually quite small, maybe 50% of the overall cost. Then you have this phenomenon where sometimes the plane lands in Antigua and then land again in Barbados, and all of those landings are designed for those countries to collect something. So all of that is into the ticket. And we're amazed how each $25 and $50 adds up until that ticket price, which perhaps should have been $200, becomes $400. So there is an appeal, and I join in making that appeal, for us to do better in relation to the taxes that we levy on air travel, particularly regional travel, so that we can make it more affordable. It, to my mind, is unconscionable, the amount you have to pay. And I know that there are many of our residents here, and now nationals, some of them from Guyana, for example, originally from Guyana. I mean, one of them came to me the other day to go to Guyana from here. He said it was over $7,000. $7,000. If you imagine a family of 3 or 4 trying to go to Georgetown for whatever, it becomes unmanageable, unaffordable. And that is really difficult because you can actually go to the United States or go even to England and places in Europe sometimes at a far cheaper cost than you can go to visit your friends and relatives in the region. So we must do better, and I think looking at taxes and how we structure those is one way of doing better. You say the budget, what we're going to look at, energy, renewable energy is going to be a big factor, the geothermal energy. We hope by the time we get to budget we'll have concrete information that we can relay as to where we are. We're definitely going to be looking at some major infrastructural projects. The airport is one. The South Coast Road that we've spoken about to open up the south coast of Nevis from Long Point going towards Hanley's Road. That is another important project. We have the Pinnis Park project that I have indicated, where we want to really transform the balance of that area there. We have a port expansion project that we've been looking at, where we want to also expand the Long Point port to allow for larger ships and more cargo to come in. We think that Long Point can become an important transshipment port because of where it's located and because of the capacity that we have there for expansion. We have a lot of land in the area, and so we have been looking at that as well. Those are the projects in terms of infrastructural projects that we would want to focus on, but I think prominent among them will be renewable energy, because we feel that with renewable energy, and if we can realize the promise of geothermal, we would really have revolutionized our economy. And it is important to me and to this administration, having seen what happened to us during COVID, to find alternatives to tourism. I think that all of our eggs being in the tourism basket is not sustainable going forward in light of what we experienced during COVID when we came to a grinding halt. And so we have to find new ways. We have done little things in Nevis, like the movie industry that we're trying, emphasizing food security and agriculture, but we think renewable energy could be transformative. The experts are telling us that if this geothermal project can come to fruition, that there are also ancillary industries that can develop. They're talking about things like ammonia, developing fertilizers, for example. I don't want to misstate, but they're talking about a particular hydrogen that they say is in demand now that can also be created. So there are a number of add-ons that we can get from this industry, including, of course, energy that is demonstrably cheaper by several factors than what we are currently paying. So I think once you can get energy at a particular rate, you then start to attract industry. You attract people coming because you can afford now for them to exist here. We have seen in some of the islands like Anguilla, where they've announced that they remove duties on electric cars. And I think it's a brilliant idea. But I smiled to myself, I said, because if you remove the duties on electric cars and people invest in electric cars, the electric cars by their very name tells you they require electricity. They need to be charged. And so what's going to be the cost of the electricity that you have to keep plugging them in, of course, overnight as the case may be, and what will be that cost? And so you can't move in that direction unless you have, one, a reliable source of electricity, and two, an affordable source of electricity. And we think, therefore, that with geothermal, we can then start to move now to electric cars, electric scooters, and really transform the island and live up to our billion of Nevis naturally. That is the ambition. That is what we're seeking to achieve. Any other questions for me?
Good morning. Devon Cornelius, WinFM. Just two questions. What are the partnerships in place for the NIA to be included in the upcoming National Carnival? And the second question is, what are the interim measures agreed on by the Attorney General and the legal advisor for the NIA to resolve the NIA status issue? And this is concerning the judgment by Chief Justice Pereira in the Court of Appeal in the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. Thank you.
Okay, you asked about Carnival. I'm not aware that there's anything in place. I think, as usual, the NIA isn't involved with Carnival. We're involved with Culturama. Carnival is put on, of course, at the national level. And I think, Mr. Cornelius, that what is going to happen is that revelers and participants from Nevis are going to involve themselves as they normally do and go over to enjoy themselves as they normally do. And we always encourage, of course, Nevisians to go and support, as we encourage Kititians to come and support Culturama. So I anticipate that is what's going to happen in relation to that. In relation to the case that you refer to, it has attracted a lot of attention. And that case was really an issue where, if I can take a few minutes just to explain, that there were some lands over at Herbert's Beach area, and those lands were privately owned. There was adjoining lands owned by this company. Can't remember the name of the company now, but owned by a company. And that company had a hotel development that they claimed they were going to do. They had not delivered on that hotel development over all these years. They entered into some arrangement purportedly to purchase these additional lands at Herbert's Beach from a private owner. As a government, we were concerned that if all of Herbert's Beach went into private hands, that an important beach and an important area of recreation for the people of St. James and the people of Nevis more generally would be lost. And so under the leadership of the Honorable Alexis Jeffers as Minister of Lands, we moved to acquire those lands compulsorily. And we have finished that acquisition. We are now in the process of seeking to finalize payment for those lands. The result of that was that the owners of the adjoining lands who had this development plan sued the government, sued the NIA, claiming that somehow we had interfered in their ability to execute on their hotel development. This is my understanding of the dispute. The papers in that suit were served on a member of the secretarial staff or the support staff at the legal department here in Charlestown. And those documents were referred, I gather, to Mr. Terence Byron, who was the outside counsel who was retained to deal with this particular matter. There were some issues in terms of communication, I think some issues in terms of finalizing the retainer. The upshot of that was that an acknowledgement of service, which is a requirement procedurally, was not filed within the stipulated time. And so the company that sued went and asked the court for a default judgment. That is a judgment that is not based on the merits, but rather one based on the fact that no acknowledgement of service had been filed within the required time. The court granted the default judgment, and the NIA then moved to have the default judgment set aside. On that application, I gather, the master refused to set aside the default judgment. The NIA argued in part that service on a member of the support staff, secretary, at the legal department does not constitute sufficient service to bring the case to the attention of the NIA. It's like you just hand it to a member of staff there, that's not enough. And that I understand was the argument. The master refused to set aside the judgment, and so we appealed to the Court of Appeal. Apparently in the Court of Appeal, the Chief Justice of her own volition asked for counsel to address her on the issue of whether the NIA has any standing to sue or be sued in civil matters. And that would have come as a surprise because the NIA, since before Noah built the ark, has had standing and has sued and been sued, has entered into contracts and has done all the necessary things. And so the Chief Justice invited, and the counsel involved in the case, whom I am told were Terence Byron, Dr. Henry Brown, Queen's Counsel, the Attorney General's chambers, I believe was represented by the Solicitor General, Mrs. Simone Bullen, I think her name is, and all of the counsel, and I can confirm this because I decided to read the papers myself, all of them came to the conclusion that the NIA did in fact have capacity to sue and be sued. So those were the submissions before the court. The Chief Justice disagreed with all of the submissions and came to her own conclusion that the NIA did not have the capacity to sue and be sued, and that the only way that the NIA can sue or be sued is through the Attorney General. And she used the Crown Proceedings Act as the basis for so determining. The voice of the court is final until appealed or until legislative changes are made. And so that is the decision. The other two judges agreed because it was a decision of the full court. So you did say it was a decision of the Chief Justice. She's the one who wrote the decision, but the other two judges concurred. And so we have this really anomaly because that decision not only overruled decades of practice, but it also overruled many decisions that had been made by the court before, because there was never ever an issue of the NIA being able to sue or be sued. And it is a decision which is curious because the Constitution gives the NIA certain discrete powers. In fact, our Constitution gives the NIA exclusive responsibility on the island of Nevis in relation to some areas. So let us take roads, sake of argument. it would seem to me strange that the NIA constitutionally has exclusive responsibility for roads on Nevis, but we can't enter into a contract with Surrey Paving to build a road. I mean, that to my mind seems odd. And I believe that perhaps not enough attention was paid to the Constitution, and the Crown Proceedings Act was elevated above the Constitution, which really, it should be the other way around. As the Constitution is very clear that it is a supreme law, and that any law inconsistent with it is void. And so if there was an interpretation to be had, it ought to have been an interpretation which would have upheld the fact that the Constitution gives the NIA awesome responsibility and powers. So it seems now that we have an anomalous situation where the NIA has all this power, all this authority, exclusive responsibility in the island of Nevis, but can't sue or be sued. So if the NIA were to enter into a contract tomorrow, they say, the only way you can sue is to beg the Attorney General to bring it for you. And if he says no, what happens? So that, to my mind, is a very dangerous decision, because it really means that the NIA is rendered impotent in relation to developmental matters that are within the constitutional purview of the NIA. Because at any point you can get an Attorney General in Sinkis who's hostile to the NIA. We understand the politics. And when that happens, what does that mean? So somebody wants to sue the NIA, they have to sue the Attorney General. The NIA wants to sue, the NIA has to beg the Attorney General, can you please bring the suit for us? That makes no sense whatsoever. As I said, it goes completely. So this decision is a cheese that stands alone, because it goes against practice, it goes against precedent, it goes against decades of what was considered the established position. It goes against all the opinions of all the lawyers in the case. And it wasn't necessary for the decision in this particular matter. Because really the only issue was whether service on a junior member of staff at the legal department was sufficient service. That really, as I understand it, was the main issue. The Chief Justices who introduced this question asked them to advise on the question, and then went against the advice that she got, which is her prerogative, and which, of course, is a matter for the court. So we have to respect the court. We have to respect the decision. And so I have sought to give you some background. Now, the obvious solution is through some legislative amendment. The Crown Proceedings Act, I believe, can be amended to make it clear that it excludes the NIA, which has, of course, the right to sue and be sued. In the interim, the Attorney General has agreed to grant a fiat to the NIA, which will allow the NIA to use that fiat. Fiat simply means permission to sue. And so that is the immediate solution to that problem. But we are cognizant of it, and we understand that it cannot be allowed to stand. I have already instructed the legal department to make arrangements to appeal this decision, which we think is bad in law, to the Privy Council, which is our final court of appeal. And we have engaged with the Honorable Attorney General to amend and put legislation in the National Assembly to fix this problem. Whichever comes first is the way we will go, but we need to have this problem resolved, because it is a problem not just for this administration. I mean, I recognize that some have sought to make a little politics out of it, but really, this is not a political issue, because whoever occupies the NIA is going to have the same problem, that a court has said that you can't sue or be sued. And if you can't sue or be sued, people are naturally going to say, well, we can't enter into dealings with you. Why would I come to Nevis and invest if something goes wrong? I can't sue the government. How could the government give me concessions and give me approvals and give me all of that if something goes wrong? I can't sue them and say enforce what it is. So it really makes a nonsense of the powers of the NIA. And I do believe that the decision is an unfortunate decision, one which was unnecessary, but it is what it is, and we must respect the decisions of the court until such time as they either set aside or legislation is used to fill the position. But in the interim, we are going the route of a fiat if it becomes necessary. I'm hopeful that the NIA isn't doing anything wrong, so nobody needs to sue us for a while, so we'll have an opportunity to resolve this legislatively. But in the interim, if it were to happen, that is the course of action that we've decided to take. I think that I've answered your questions. Okay. Second answer a little long-winded. Forgive me, but I need to give a little background. Any other questions?
Good morning, all. Beyond Hanley representing BHC Media. Dr. Brantley, last election you campaigned on fair share for Nevis. Today, you gave some points to highlight the fact that the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis is so far excellent. Question is, do you anticipate that Nevis will now receive a fair share of the federal resources? Question 2. On my way here this morning, I noticed that Public Works is currently patching the road from Gingerland to Charlestown. However, from Hosfords to Rams, the road was recently resurfaced and it's looking brand new. Question is there any plans in place to resurface the road from Gingerland to Hosfords? Question number 3. There are 55 African countries. However, I cannot recall ever seeing any African ambassadors or resident ambassadors from Africa in St. Kitts and Nevis or visiting St. Kitts and Nevis. So my question is, are there any African ambassadors resident on St. Kitts and Nevis at this time? Last question is, just the other day I was watching online on Facebook in South Africa. You had a leader of a political party that was being sued by a group for racist remarks. But that case was covered live. It was on all the TV channels and it was on the political party Facebook page. So I was able to follow the case live from beginning to end. And it dawned on me that I have never seen that in St. Kitts and Nevis. So my question to you is it illegal for members of the media to record or take pictures inside a courtroom during a court case? Thank you.
I'm not so sure what the answer to your final question is, Mr. Hanley, about whether or not it's illegal. I do know that the courtroom is controlled by the judge or the magistrate, as the case may be. So they're the ones who ordinarily will give permission or withhold permission, as the case may be. And that has been the practice. I can't speak to the legality or illegality, but I do know that mostly when you see the media in the courtroom, if they do want to take photos, they will ask permission of the judge. And I have seen photos being taken in courtrooms, particularly on ceremonial occasions when people are being sworn in and that kind of thing. Young lawyers are being called to the bar, you know, when people want to have those photos. So usually it's done with the permission of the presiding officer, who is the judge or the magistrate, as the case may be. I think, however, your question potentially points to a larger issue of, as you said, being able to stay here in Nevis and see a whole proceeding. That's a live broadcast. And as you know, that is the way of the world now. Parliaments around the world, everything is being done live. We're here now, going live. And so the question might well be whether or not it's not time for our proceedings in our courts also to be live, so that you can stay home if you have an interest in a particular case, that you can stay home and listen. And in fact, I believe that the technology now exists to do it. It's only a question of perhaps adjusting the rules to make it possible. There are matters sometimes in court which are sensitive, of course. You can have matters, particularly some criminal matters, which are very sensitive, or some family matters which are very sensitive, and those perhaps would fall outside the rubric. But if you had a major constitutional matter, for example, in which people are interested, then I see no reason why that should not be available live to persons. You will recall that when we had the Boundaries case, I think it was, that went to the Privy Council, that was live, and that people were listening on radio, people were watching the law lords deal with that matter. This was back in 2014 or early 15 when we had that issue. So I believe that the time might well have come. So that is something that certainly I would look forward to. Resident ambassadors from Africa, no. There are none here in St. Kitts and Nevis. What most countries do, Mr. Hanley, is that they will appoint an ambassador to the region. So, for example, the United States has appointed an ambassador to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, who's based in Barbados. The English have done the same thing, the UK. They've appointed a high commissioner to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, who's based in Barbados. And in my experience, the African countries tend to appoint an ambassador resident in places like Jamaica, Trinidad, or in some cases in Cuba, who's accredited to us. So it is not true to say we haven't had visiting ambassadors, because we have. When I was foreign minister, we had diplomatic week, for example, that we had celebrated. And we had ambassadors who had come from South Africa. We had individuals who had been here from other African nations, from Kenya, for example. I believe that we have had visits from persons from Ghana, and those individuals would have come. And we have, some of them are accredited to St. Kitts and Nevis, but not a resident here. Right? So that is a part of the process, just like we ourselves have ambassadors. For example, Dr. Kevin Isaac, the High Commissioner to the UK. He is resident in the UK, but he's also our ambassador to, I think, Thailand, as an example. Her Excellency Sherry Truss, who's resident in Ottawa and who's our High Commissioner to Canada, is also, I think, our ambassador to Panama. So it's not unusual that countries with scarce resources who cannot afford to have an embassy or a high commission in every country will designate an ambassador, but that ambassador is non-resident. And so that is the situation with the African countries. The road from Gingerland to Hosfords, there is no immediate plan to do a wholesale reconstruction of that road. That road from Gingerland to Hosfords, I think, will undergo upgrades as necessary, repairs as necessary, where the emphasis right now for us is on the main road would be from Cliff Dwellers over to the camps area. I did mention road construction, but I also forgot to say at the time that we're also proposing to do a significant road rebuild from Church Ground, coming through Church Ground and into Hamilton, because we think that that's a critical artery if there's any problem on the Island Main Road to allow traffic to flow in that direction. So I should have mentioned that, Mr. Bart, earlier. So going back to you, Mr. Hanley, there is no plan to do the road from Gingerland to Hosfords at this point. We have focused our attention on the other side of the island to get that road done, at which point we think that the Island Main Road will be in fairly good shape in terms of the next several years. We hope that we will have the use of that particular road. You asked about fair share. Well, that, of course, continues to be an issue. I mentioned Prime Minister Drew on 2 or 3 occasions during this press conference, because, as I said, thus far, he has been a man of his word. Thus far, in terms of our discussions and the issues, he has responded positively. And I was particularly impressed with this particular funds that have become available through the Republic of China, Taiwan, because, as I indicated, these were not funds that were earmarked for this project or earmarked to us. These were funds that were diverted. And we have continued to engage. Mr. Bart asked the question, I believe it was Mr. Bart, about the committee that is to be put in place. And as I indicated, it is that committee that we hope, which for Nevis is headed by the Honorable Troy Leiber, that we hope will engage in those negotiations and those discussions to take us forward. But we look forward to a good working relationship with the federal government. I feel that the people of our country would have spoken eloquently on August 5th. The people of St. Kitts would have given Labour 6 out of 8 seats. The people of Nevis would have given CCM 3 out of 3 seats. It is now time to get down to work. And it behooves us to work together and to achieve all that we can for the people of St. Kitts and for the people of Nevis. And that is our disposition. And I think thus far that posture of cooperation, rather than engaging in any kind of attacks or any kind of aggression, I think is really the best approach. There's not going to be an election here again, I don't anticipate, for another 5 years. And so all of those who are involved in the politics have a lot of time to get themselves ready. But right now we're in governance mode. I think that is what the country wants. The country needs to settle down and allow St. Kitts and Nevis to realize its full potential. And that is our ambition, and that is what we're working towards. Are there any more questions for me?
So just one question. Regarding the announcement by the Prime Minister that frontline workers would be paid an honorarium, would that courtesy be extended to Nevis as well? Thank you.
You know, Mr. Cornelius, you have asked a question, and it is an important question, but one that I am not yet able to answer, because I missed the opportunity yesterday to raise this with the Prime Minister. I really missed that opportunity. But it's a matter I need to raise with him, because I am still trying to figure out what the parameters are of this honorarium. When he made the announcement, it was just prior, I think, to him leaving to go to the United Nations, so we didn't have a chance to speak. So if you forgive me, I'll come back to you with a response on that. But as a principle, I think yes, those who worked hard in Nevis, who worked hard to keep us safe, should be able to access whatever is being offered. But in terms of the mechanics, who's going to benefit? And I'll tell you perhaps a little joke, that once the Prime Minister made this statement, I didn't hear it myself, but the reason I knew about it is because, as we say colloquially, Tut Mun Saman Bagay start to call and say they're frontline worker. So some who did absolutely nothing during COVID say, listen, I'm a frontline worker. I'm a customs officer, or I'm a police officer, or I'm a fireman, or I'm a person who works at the hospital. I don't cut the grass at the hospital. That means I'm a frontline worker, so I need my honorarium. So, we need some parameters. We need to determine who qualifies. Now, I had thought that it would be the people on the task force and, those who really worked during that period of time. But I need some clarity before we can make an announcement. But in terms of a principle, I agree that they should benefit. Anything further for me? No? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And we hope to be back sometime soon with another monthly press conference. Thank you, members of the press, for being here faithfully and dutifully each month, and I look forward to engaging with you again. Thank you. God bless you.